Okay, so let's kick off, and if anyone else joins, they would be catching up with us. Thanks again for joining. Today we will be covering growing sales, and specifically with paid ads with performance marketing. Just as a short introduction, I am doing it together with Quiqup as a collaboration, where Quiqup is a delivery partner and inviting a lot of the clients from their side to participate in this. And we are an agency, Bubble Marble. We help e-commerce and other businesses to grow their brands through either development services or by helping them promote through paid ads. If you need any help in terms of either logistics and shipping, fulfillment, or to actually run ads, feel free to scan the QR codes. Let us know how we can help. But in the meantime, we'll jump straight into the topic of today, and I hope that this will help at least try the paid ads and do it in a smart way and not lose the budget right away. So this webinar is being recorded. I will share the recording after that, together with all the materials, so that you can revisit them. And as we go, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A section, and we will have some time at the very end to go through them. And if something happens during the webinar that you can either not hear me or see me or whatever else, just drop a message in the chat. I will be following that. As for agenda, we would cover all the basics of what you need to start with to actually get going with paid ads, which includes tracking and why is it important for running any campaigns. Specifically, most of the brands are working with Shopify, so we will just quickly go through how it works there. And then we will cover Google Ads and Meta Ads. How do you set up, what to look out for, and at the end, how to not lose the budget when you're starting out and launching your first campaigns. In terms of tracking, it's quite simple. You cannot really improve what you're not measuring. So if you don't know which channels are bringing you conversions, you don't know how your spend converts into the actual sales. When you do have the tracking set up properly, you can see both the cost of sale or a conversion and the return on the ad spend. You can calculate it yourself by comparing the revenues that you're getting from a channel to the marketing spend. But in platforms like Google Ads, you can actually see the numbers of the ROAS if you have the conversion set up and the conversion value, and it obviously knows the spend of your campaigns. And then the actual platform performance really depends on having the right tracking setup, because currently the platforms are moving towards lowering the barriers for enter so that everyone can try running ads on their own, which means that all the platforms become like a black box where you need to feed in all the signals, but then there would be less settings to actually play around with, and a lot less manual actions than what we did to have before. In terms of implementation, it's if you're working with any platform, usually Google Tag Manager is the greatest way to do it, because this is a simple way. You put a container on the website, and then you can set up all the tags, all the tracking pixels in one place and manage them in one place, so that you know what pixels are triggered when. And when setting up, you need to make sure that all the pages of the site do have the tracking. In terms of different platforms, it's usually quite easy, and you may be able to just put it in one place. Where that makes a difference to look out for is that if you're using different platforms for different parts of the website, sometimes it can be a blog can be hosted, let's say, on a WordPress, and then the e-commerce part can be let's say Shopify or something else. So there are cases where sometimes companies use different mixes of platforms, and you just need to make sure that you have the tracking set up, that you have it set up only once, that you're not double counting any events, that you're not double counting the traffic on your pages. And then, yeah, so in terms of setting up on Shopify, this is where it actually gets a little bit different, because Shopify likes to have its proprietary control over pixels. So instead of adding Google Tag Manager to the website, you're using what is called sales channels in Shopify. And then when you add a sales channel of Facebook, it would let you integrate and connect with your Facebook account and your pixels there. And same goes with Google. It allows you to connect Google Analytics, Google Ads, Google Merchant Center for your campaigns. And you basically need to click and connect your accounts to them. And if it's done just once through a clean account, there's usually no problem with that. You just get everything working out of the box pretty much without having to manually install the pixels. And in terms of the conversion tracking, Shopify simply sends the standard e-commerce events, such as add to cart, checkout start, and the purchase event. So you don't need to worry about it if you're using Shopify. For that, other platforms, it may depend, but usually they would have the standard e-commerce events for all the sales steps. So yeah, things to just look out for before you're actually setting up the ads after putting tracking on the website. In Meta, if you're using standard events such as purchase, add to cart, lead, it's all good. It would work out of the box. But if you're tracking any specific event that you named differently, which you're free to use any event names, Meta would actually block them temporarily, and it would not allow just any random event from your website to be used as a conversion event. So what you would need to do is just go to your events manager in Meta, and there would be an alert for you to actually verify and put a checkbox that you know this event. This is the conversion that you would want to track. And then with Meta, it's quite simple, because as soon as you set up events, you would see them flowing. With Google Ads, because there's no easy debugging built in Google Ads specifically, and there is some lag when events can show up. It's easiest to use a tool called Google Tag Assistant. You can just Google it, and it's tagassistant.google.com. It allows you to launch your website in a debug mode, where in a separate window, you would simply see every single event that happens on your website. So you just go in there. It's pretty straightforward. There is no setup needed. And as soon as you launch it, and on your website, you just go through the funnel of adding the product to cart, going through the checkout, and finishing the order. You should see all the events showing up in the Google Tag Assistant. And if they are there, and if they all happen just once, then you're good to go. And finally, something that is not important so far for the UAE market, for instance, but if you're selling into the EU, for example, you do need to set up the consent settings. This is just a special tag that tells Google that any specific user is okay with sharing their data for advertising purposes. What this will allow is for simple communication of tracking information between, let's say, Google Analytics and Google Ads. And without it, you would just lose all the precision of tracking, and by default, it would not be used in the EU market. Like in other markets where it's not where it is not required, it is fine not to have it so far. You would still see the alerts in Google ads in Google Analytics. Sorry, that this is something that is needed, but we just need to follow the compliance. So now let's jump to ads. So let's say that all the tracking is set up and we need to pick the types of campaign that we would work with. In Google Ads, there's 7 of them, but I would like to address 3 of the most straightforward to start with, where we want to actually just try and get to any first orders, because other ones are better for growing the brand and building awareness rather than actually chasing the conversions. So the first type is the perhaps the oldest one, the search campaigns. This is where users search for something on Google and they would see the ads above or around the search results. This is the highest intent. This is typically the most expensive traffic that we can get from Google, but this is also what converts the best, because people are looking for something, and we are responding to that search query. The second type of campaign is performance max, and the best way I can describe it is that it is, in a way, a black box that captures the users across all the Google platforms, but it works very well together with search campaigns. And we can say that it is one step further from the search intent, but still very close, because Performance Max relies heavily on using different signals that we can send to Google, which is just the right conversion events, and then Google decides which users are likely to convert, and different signals in terms of keywords and audiences, but we'll cover this slightly later. And as part of Performance Max, there's the shopping ads. Shopping ads is it simply can also show up in all parts of Google, including search results, including display network, YouTube, but it actually shows the products as ads, as assets. So instead of just the headlines and the descriptions that we would write ourselves, it would show the product pictures, product names, prices, and it would get people directly into the product pages on the website. And let's go one by one through each type and what to look out for when you're setting up things. In terms of the keyword research, this is the first part where we need to start with the Google Ads. There is a tool called Keyword Planner built in Google that will allow you to find some keyword suggestions and also find the volume. So how many people monthly are looking for a certain keywords, and then you can basically build up some of the plan in terms of how much budget would you need, what would a click cost. But then you can also do that when setting up the campaign and just see how it goes, because there's a lot of other factors that would allow us to build up the campaign. So when you're setting up the campaign, again, all the platforms, they try to help you as much as possible. So they would ask you for your website, they would ask you for description of what you're selling, and they would try to generate keywords from the landing page that you would give them. And there would be a few suggestions to use. As you enter your additional keywords, you can get extra. But where I recommend to start is actually go to ChatGPT, explain what you're selling, explain your business, and ask for a list of, say, 50 keywords that would make sense for running a search campaign. And you would get a list that is actually quite good. You need to read it through. You need to make sure that it actually makes sense. But then this would be a good base to start with. When you paste it into Google Ads when setting up the campaign, Google would also give you a lot of suggestions. And the more keywords you provide from the beginning, the more suggestions you get. And from that, you can build quite a long list of keywords. As you start, you need to select also the keyword match type. So this is basically how broad can Google interpret each keyword, and does it need to be exactly as it's written, or can there be any variation? And initially, it's okay to start with just a broad match, especially if you're not sure about your keyword list, and you can add just whatever you come up with. And broad match means that it can use your keywords, it can use them as part of a longer keyword phrase, or it may also show your ads for either completely different keywords that Google thinks mean the same, which is nice for discovery of new keywords as you just launched the campaign. And also the same way it would go for different languages. If someone, for whatever reason, Google's in a different language, it would actually also show your ads for these people. So when we have the keywords, we need to come up with the ad copy and all of the assets that we can provide. Basically, the more variations we give to Google, the better that would work eventually, because on different placements of the ads, whatever that would be, above or below the organic search results, the ads themselves, they can be of different size. They can include 2 or 3 headlines. They can include one of the descriptions that you would provide. They can include site links and different other smaller assets. And the more options you have, the bigger your ad can be, the more space you can take in front of the user, which normally leads to better click-through rates and better converting ads at the end. When writing the ad copy, Google would also suggest you a lot of options, which are actually quite good. You can write your own, but the general rule is that whatever keywords you're used to actually target your ads, you would want to use as many of them and as close to them as possible in the actual ad copy, so that if people are looking for something and they're seeing the same words appearing in front of them, they are more likely to click. And then also Google considers your ad quality being higher. And the higher the quality of our ads, according to Google, the cheaper it would be for us to run it, and the better results we can get. So we should be targeting to reach at least good or excellent quality level of ads, as quoted by Google, as what you would see in the UI. Sometimes it's just not possible to reach the excellent quality. And a good example of it could be if you're targeting your, let's say, competitors in a campaign, you wouldn't want to use their brands in the actual ad copy, which means that your ads would never be of excellent quality because your keywords are not matching what you're saying in the ad. But still, this campaign can make sense if people are looking for someone and you're just telling about your services in the ad copy. So when going through the optimization of the campaign, there is a report in Google Ads in the section of reports and insights, which is called search terms. And I think this is something that makes sense to revisit as often as possible in the beginning. And then it could be gradually less often, but still regular. So this search term report, it actually tells us what were the keywords that people looked for when they saw our ads, when they got impressions, or when we had any clicks from them. And it is a very good comparison of what we used as the targeting keywords in the settings compared to what we see in the search terms report. And from this report, we would discover multiple things. On one side, there would be a lot of ideas, especially in the beginning. If we missed some of the keywords and there is just a different way of people looking for our products, we can simply go through that report and add new keywords into the campaign that we didn't have originally. But then on the other hand, we would see that we might be spending budget on keywords that are similar to what we use, but they just make no sense. So as simple examples, people might be looking for courses. They might be looking for, let's say, downloads of a file. They might be looking for, like a very often example is that people would look for a YouTube video instead of a service that is provided by the company. And from the phrasing of the keywords, when you see it, you can clearly say like, okay, like if they are adding 20 minutes at the end, then it looks like they're looking for a video. So you would want to use this report to also add the negative keywords and make sure that you're clarifying your keywords. And then as you look in the beginning, it can be week after week. Later, it can be monthly. You would want to look into the search term report and see that, okay, everything that I'm seeing here, it simply makes sense. What we're spending the budget, most of the budget on, it makes sense. It's what describes our services and products the best way. And then when this process goes on and you're not surprised anymore to see any new keywords, what we would want to do is typically switch all the keyword match types to phrase, which basically allows Google to use either exactly the phrase as we have it written, or have something before or after. So no variations that would be completely different, where Google just may decide that something is similar topic, but it's actually not. Another point, which is quite simple, and I would not recommend touch it, and usually it doesn't really bring uplift. There is a setting that is enabled by default, which is part of the black box strategy, I guess, which is we have the display network, which is the my apologies. I think I lost the connection. So I'll just move on with the last topic. So there is a section in Google Ads settings which is called Display Network, which is enabled by default. This allows Google to show your ads not only directly in the search results when people are looking for your product, but also to show them outside of Google on different websites, on content website, media websites, different blogs where they would have AdSense ad blogs. And it basically expands the reach of your ads by a lot. It can make sense for just from the perspective of having more reach and getting more in front of people. But actually, this is something that we would want to do with the PMax campaign, with the Performance Max campaign later on. So because we want to control what we're getting, I would recommend simply going into the campaign settings, finding this option of enabling display network, and just turn it off from the beginning, and then we don't really want to touch it. And then lastly, as we optimize the campaign, we would want to start by optimizing towards the conversion events that we have. Ideally, it should be the sale, but as we're just starting out, it's better to give advertising platforms as many conversion events, positive signals as possible. So it can make sense to actually use the add to cart event, for example, if you're starting out with a smaller budget, and if you're not expecting to get a lot of sales. But whatever event you choose, Google would recommend, and it would ask you to come up with some target CPA, which is cost per action. So it would allow you to tell that, okay, I want to have 10 dirhams, 100 dirhams per conversion. And this, I think this can be a trap in some way. So I would recommend to actually not setting a target CPA from the very beginning, and just trust the platform to show you what is a realistic CPA. Because if you set a value that is too high, it might be just too aggressive in terms of bidding, and it might start bringing you just too expensive traffic. If it sees that you're okay to spend maybe twice more as you should be spending, or on the other hand, if your target CPA is way too low and it's below the reasonable kind of market level that is achievable, you might see that Google Ads would actually just stop working and stop delivering impressions, because it would understand that it doesn't know how to bring you conversions because the CPA is too low. So I would recommend starting without it, get some conversions, get the campaign going through the learning phase, which is usually 1 to 2 weeks. And then when you see the conversions coming in and you see that the cost per conversion is a certain amount, it is okay to establish some CPA that you would be comfortable with. If you set it at around your actual CPA, or maybe a little bit higher, 10% higher, then you would typically see that Google keeps delivering within the same economics, and sometimes it can improve on it. And then you can try to push it a little bit lower if you are okay to get maybe less traffic, but cheaper conversions. Or if you see that you're not spending your budget and you're okay to spend more, you can actually specifically put a higher cost per action as a target. So moving on to Performance Max or PMax campaign and the shopping ads. The key for this campaign is to give as many signals for targeting the campaign as possible. So this means, of course, you need to have the conversion set up, but then when putting the campaign together, instead of the keywords as you would be able to do in the search campaign, for Performance Max, you're setting up the signals. And signals is more of a different ways to describe your audience. There is a section where you can put keywords, but in this case, we need to be much broader in terms of what we use. So it's okay to have just maybe 10, 20 keywords in this campaign, but they should be very broad, because they would be more about the topic of your product, and not specifically the naming of the categories or products. So not as detailed as you would have in the search campaign, because this is more of a signal to Google to understand the search intent and the topic. So what that would mean is that if the users would search for something within this topic, they might see your ads later on. So not directly in the search results, but somewhere on a different website, on YouTube, maybe on the following search result. So what you may see sometimes is that if you search for something and you can actually see ads not for something that you're searched for, and this would be the Performance Max campaign working. It's usually not completely irrelevant, because this might be something that you just were looking at a few minutes ago. And then other than the keywords, what we have is the interest target. So there's a lot of very interesting groups where you can select that people that are frequent shoppers, people that are in market for certain products or services. And there are basically niches that you can pick and highlight, as well as you can list websites, which can be simply your competitors or similar websites in terms of the niche, or websites that are showing, let's say, the affluence of the audience. So it can be websites not of your competitors, but of products of different categories, but similar price points to yours. So that, like, if people shop there, then they might be able to shop with my store as well. And we would want to put down all the signals that we can come up with that would make sense for us. The simpler the product, usually the less of it is okay to have. So we can launch a campaign without any signals. And if the product is not very expensive and it is very simple to understand, then Google might still be able to find the audience and start running the campaign. In terms of the asset setup, it's very similar to what we have in the search campaign. We have headlines, we have descriptions, we have, I think they call it a longer description, which is kind of a similar block of text, but that would show up in a different place. We have images and videos. And the key for Performance Max campaign to run well is that you need to add as much as possible, and you need to add all the types of assets, including if you have videos, that can be even some animations. So the simplest way to enter video creatives is probably if you just make some animations in Canva, for example. So you need to have both the horizontal formats and the vertical formats. So every type that you can upload, you should do it, because this would unlock you all the different placements where your ads can go. So images and text is what goes all over the internet. But for example, videos, horizontal ones can show up as pre-rolls in YouTube. And the vertical one is obviously shorts, which is it's a very big placement. So and it's very good to catch your audience basically wherever it's better to convert. Then speaking of shopping ads, this is something that is set up kind of together if you're running shopping ads. The secret there is, again, because our products are the assets, essentially. So our ads are the products. We just need to make sure that everything is at the highest quality in our Merchant Center. And Google Merchant Center is basically a place that syncs your products from your store, from your shopping feed into the Google Ads. If you're using Shopify, then actually the Google and YouTube sales channel is the one place where you would set up everything, and you would set up your Merchant Center account from there. And what you would need to do is just go to your Merchant Center and check that all the products are live, all the products are approved, and the store quality is good across the board. And then lastly, for e-commerce, it's quite straightforward, and Performance Max and shopping ads are one of the best channels, because also when people are looking for your products and they see the actual product, the price, and this is the most direct impact that we can get. It's good to have them. But if we don't have the shopping ads, and if we're advertising through just simply different assets, I would say that Performance Max is a campaign that is better to be added as a second step. So we start with a search campaign as the highest intent, which is the closest to conversion, where people are looking for something actively. We see how it goes. We understand our economics and understand our cost per order. And then when we're happy with that, we launch a Performance Max campaign, and then they start working as a combination, and we are driving it from there. Jumping to meta ads. This is quite different from Google. This is different. This is different in terms of how people are interacting with it, because we're catching them on all the meta platforms, but essentially it's would be probably mostly Instagram. There's some Facebook placements where people can get caught, and now we're getting also into Threads as a placement, as a new app. In terms of targeting, when we set up the campaigns, if we have a very simple product where it is very visual, it is a very simple, I mean simple to understand. So for instance, it can be like some beauty product where, like, if you see it, you just understand what it is right away. For this, Meta can work actually pretty well with what they call advantage plus targeting, which just means no targeting. So you set up a campaign, you put your location, your budget, but then you would just not use any targeting settings. And then Meta would very quickly understand if people click on ads, if they watch your videos, if they convert on the website or not. They would quickly understand what the product is and what the audience would like to have. But but if you're not sure about it, or if you want to use any targeting and give any signals, it's good to start with interest, because very similar to performance max campaigns, this is a signal that shows Meta what people might be into, that it would look for, and you would just narrow the audience a little bit and not start with everyone at the same time. And so interest is the broadest targeting you can use from the very beginning. And then as soon as you start building up the traffic and getting some conversions, you can actually expand and go to retargeting and lookalike audiences, which would allow Meta to see who are your website visitors, who are your actual shoppers, and then look for similar audiences. So when setting up the creatives, Meta is all about the visuals and all about catching people and making them stop scrolling and swiping through wherever they are. The key is to basically find what would actually work for the users best. It's good to think about what people are doing when they would come across your ad. So, for example, one of the key formats is the vertical video or photos, because this would go into all the Instagram stories and reels. And you need to think about people swiping through them. And then at one moment, they would just see your ad, and they would have to make a very quick decision if they're swiping right through, or if they would stick to watch it. So finding the concept and the creative that would actually work is the key to success with Meta. But then also, this is something that usually doesn't work as stable as it does with Google. So if we had to compare, Google is a place where you would encounter people searching for your products. And this is why it's okay to just respond with more straightforward ad copy images that would just showcase your products. And on Meta, because you're grabbing attention of people when they're doing something else, at some point they would start seeing your ad simply way too often, and they would get used to it, and it would normally stop working. So what we would want to do is look at the frequency of how many times people see your ad in a certain period. For the prospecting ads, which is the one going for the new users, we would want to keep it usually below 2 or 3, which is where a person would see your ad, for example, 1 or 2 times in a week, and this is fine. If it goes much higher, then you might have a tight and small audience, and this means that people are just seeing your ads more and more often. And those that are closer to conversion would likely see your ads even much more often than what you see as an average number. And this is when your ads would stop working, and we need to come up with a new format. And so, lastly, a single point is that you can also have a catalog that you would sync with Meta, and there you would be able to see to use all of the actual products in the creatives. They can be slideshows, they can be carousel ads that people might swipe through. And this is very good for retargeting and for users who, let's say, abandoned a shopping cart on the website. But this is something that you would be able to set up as you grow your traffic and when you have enough users to actually run these campaigns. So in terms of how do we actually scale and what could be the mistakes to make and especially what to try and not make. So as I mentioned, it's good to understand what you would like to pay per order or per add to cart, per conversion that you would be setting up. But just don't set the targets right away. It's good to let the campaign run and then let it optimize, and then you would set the targets as soon as you understand your levels. You would want to start the budget with the budget that would allow for at least 3 to 5 conversions per day. So this is something connected to the first point. You're not setting up any targets, but you might typically understand how much are you willing to pay per conversion. So your budget should be something that can bring multiple conversions per day. If it's orders, and for example, if you're just testing and you're not sure if you can bring enough of those every single day, this is where you might want to use another conversion event that is higher in the funnel. So for example, target not the conversion, but the, let's say, add to cart. And then if your conversion from add to cart to sale is, let's say, 20%, then you would have 5 times more add to carts than potential sales. Assuming that the audience would be of similar quality, but this is something that you can test to see which events you would be getting and how many of them can you bring. When you're testing creatives in Meta, then you would actually want to have a few of them so that you would see which one performs better, but then also not too many, because you want to have some budget allocated to each creative. I put here 3 to 5 dirhams. Usually it's around $1, and I think this is even a technical limitation that you wouldn't want to spend less per ad than this. And it sounds like very, very little, but actually it goes there quite quickly. So imagine you have a couple of campaigns where you want to try, let's say, promote different categories. Inside each campaign, you may want to have multiple ad sets where you would try like one group of interest, another group of interest, and then inside each ad set, you can actually have the same set of ads, the same set of creatives that you would test in each ad set. So each individual one of those can actually then get very small budget allocated to them. And if the budget per ad is way too small, then you wouldn't actually learn if it works or not. So when you're making a decision about how your creatives perform, you would want them to actually spend some budget before you decide that, okay, this ad, it just doesn't work. It doesn't convert, or it does. So then when adding new creatives, when making changes to your campaign setup, targeting, both Meta and Google, they might go into what's called a learning phase. Usually it represents some turbulence in the results that you would see. So sometimes, let's say Google can actually overspend your budget, then it can underspend the next day. The cost per conversion can go up or down significantly during a few days, and then it would stabilize. And whenever you make very big changes, it can go through this process once again. So if you decide to double the budget, or if you decide to try different targeting, you may experience this. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to make a lot of changes very often. And if you want to, let's say, test a new targeting setting, then you may want to try and launch a separate ad set or a separate campaign. So that's something that works, that you're not touching it. And the same goes with a budget, that if you want to scale it or lower it, it's better to do it in the small steps and not increase it or decrease it by more than around, let's say, 20%, where if you do that, then you might see just gradual changes in the campaign. But if it's more, then it might go into the learning phase that you wouldn't want to. So that goes through testing. You would want to do some isolated tests before you actually scale something. And when you're trying out creatives on Meta, what you would typically see is that if something works, it often works really well, really quickly. And you would just put a new creative and then you would start getting conversions from it. But then if it's something that that got up very quickly, it can also go down in 2-3 weeks, or sometimes maybe a couple of months. And as soon as you see that performance of a creative starts to decline, you need to start thinking about what would come next. Ideally, you would have been testing some other creatives and you would know that, okay, as soon as this top performer goes below a certain level, we would just stop it, and then you would have something to replace, or you need to have some new ideas ready that you would keep testing after that. And lastly, aside from what you can set up in terms of the ads themselves, you need to keep thinking about the landing pages. You need to make sure that they convert well. You would want to test them and try different variations in terms of e-commerce. Of course, for the shopping ads, for the catalog ads in Meta, you would have products as your landing page, and you should be thinking then about optimizing conversion on the product pages. But then in different ads, you may be promoting category pages or specific landing pages that you would build up. So you can test those. An important limitation on Google Ads site to just keep in mind and not get blocked is that you cannot use different domains inside the same ad group. So this is typical when you might have a subdomain of your website and the different parts of the website. So you cannot have different ones in a single ad set. You would need to create different ones separately. So this is it. I hope this was helpful. If you need any help, feel free to reach out to us. Either us to help set up the campaign, or again, Quiqup can help you with delivery and fulfillment of your store. As a free bonus from our side, from Bubble Marble, because we're also a development agency, we do site speed performance audits. This is free. This is no obligation. Just go to the form through the QR code. Send us 3 URLs of your website that you think are the most important. For the e-commerce, it's usually just a homepage, a category page, and can be a product page. And we would monitor the performance. We would get some insights in terms of, is there something to improve from the way Google sees your website as Core Web Vitals? And we will get back to you with a free report. And you can improve your website and either help the conversion directly. And I have been told by a manager at Google that actually high performance of the website does affect bidding in the paid planes. So if your site is slower, then it might actually cost you more on the paid ads. And then on the SEO side, basically, if your site is faster and you're passing the Core Web Vitals, then you would also get better results. Okay, so we have some time for questions, and I have one from Roshan. So what type of meta ads do you see performing well in the UAE? I would say that in terms of the formats, I wouldn't say that it is very different. So video ads typically perform better, and it is indeed very different that one video can perform much better than the other one. So you need to keep testing the formats themselves. What I would recommend is if you tested different videos, try to go through different breakdowns of your creative, of your campaign. this is something where I also spot some of the budget lost and some of the problems with performance. So there's a way to go to the breakdown, and then you can go to the placement. The placement is where you would see that, for example, how many impressions, spend, or clicks you had in different sorry for the pun, in the different placements. So it's going to be Instagram Reels, Instagram Stories, Instagram Feed. It would be Messenger, it would be WhatsApp, it would be Facebook, and you would see each individual placement, and you might spot that maybe actually there is one placement that just burned your budget because Meta thought that this is the right way where it might find results. And it might be actually that it's not, it was not an ad, but it was just some one placement that you would want to exclude and try again. But if it didn't work, I would just recommend, trying something else and trying a different approach. You can also select different columns in the reporting. There is a set of columns that would allow you to see the video performance. So how many users saw the video overall, plus how many of them saw it for watched it for 3 seconds. Let's say 25%, 50%, etc. And you can see that maybe actually everyone just drops off in the very beginning of the video, which means that you need to try. You need to try a different approach. The next question: what is the average budget to be set for a new startup for Google and Meta ads? So the average is it's a little bit hard to say because it can be in typically it's in thousands thousands of dirhams per month. But I would say that if I had to put like a minimum bracket, then you need to consider how expensive is your product, how much you're going to be spending per order on paid campaigns, and maybe there would be some bracket that you would have in mind. And think of a daily budget of, let's say, 3 to 5 conversions per day, and this is where it's a good place to start with. So if you get that, then you can go a little bit higher. There is a learning phase which lasts 1 to 2 weeks, so you can go with something around the minimum budget as you see. Maybe you can go maybe twice as it, so that you're expecting to get 10 conversions per day. And then as you run, you would see the first results, and you would decide on how to scale later. So I would say just start with what you're expecting as your target CPA, but don't set the target, and then take 5 conversions per day. Meta would also my apologies once again. Meta would tell you that the learning is limited of the campaign if you're not reaching 50 conversions within a learning period, which might actually be fine, because some companies have expensive products with quite high cost per conversion, and this might still work, but ideally you would want to target something higher. And I think this is all we have. Once again, I will send over the materials and the presentation and the webinar recording. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to also just reply to the email, and we can chat. And thanks everyone for coming. See ya.